Hello there, good morning and welcome to my little arty corner of YouTube. My name's Angela. I'm known mostly as a colouring book artist, but I do a lot of different art as well. And I like to spend time drawing with you, encouraging you to draw with me, and encouraging you just to have a go and keep having a go. Practice makes improvements. Doesn't ever make perfect, I don't think. But I'm going to start this morning just by saying thank you very much to everybody who has subscribed to my channel, who has liked my videos, who has left lovely comments, who has shared the videos with others who would like them. I appreciate you all so much. If I could, I'd give you a great big Welsh hug, or cwtch as we say. So, but accept a virtual one from me. And it's Monday. It is the 21st of March, spring equinox, I believe, here or hereabouts. So actually in the very first days of astronomical spring, and the world is beginning to wake up again from its winter slumbers here in the Northern Hemisphere. I'm sorry, I'm Northern Hemispheric centric, but that's where I live and that's what I observe around me. But the seasons are changing in the Southern Hemisphere from summer to winter. We're going from winter to spring, summer to autumn even. I'm not with it yet. So with spring and flowers on my mind, it's always nice to do flowery patterns. And I had a quick look on tanglepatterns.com this morning for some inspiration rather than through my notebook, because my notebooks have got things I've previously done, and sometimes I like to do things that are new to me as well. And I stumbled across this quite floral pattern, a very floral pattern called Blomkoal, I think you might pronounce it. And I'm sorry, I'm going to murder this name. Maaike Terpstra, and she's a CZT from the Netherlands. But it's a lovely pattern. And this is the very first time I'm going to draw it. I haven't practiced this. I haven't tried drawing it before. So we're going to start with leaving some space because it's going to be quite a circular pattern. So V shapes. And we want to arrange these in a kind of ring. And what I'm doing is I'm drawing the next V shape by putting one of the lines parallel to the previous one, and that way I'll always have a nice arrangement here like this. I've got 6 spokes in the centre here, but I've got a feeling you can put any number of spokes in. I think it just depends how you can deliberately think about how you space these. If you definitely want 5 spokes, you can have 5 spokes or 4 spokes, or even 3 spokes would work. That's entirely up to you. The next step then is to choose one of these spokes, and we're going to draw a fluffy little cloud around it and just go around them all. Now I'm not starting mine at the end of these lines but underneath, as if this is disappearing into the fluff. Like so. And like so. And you can make them as fluffy or not as you like, I'm guessing. And that essentially is it. Although I will just need a different, I've got no 3, that was no 5, so this is no 3. In Maaike's, Maaike, I'm sorry. But in the original one, this is filled in with black, but I think it looked quite nice filled in with lines, essentially because I've got this lovely page in my sketchbook that is coloured with pink Distress ink. Pink's rather lovely. So that's really quite nice. A couple of things I think we can do. So let me draw another one. Because you know me, I'm going to play with this and see what variations I can come up with. Because you just never know, do you? Let me have a look. Let's do this again. Yep, already varying. Decided, because my first one was just 3. The cloud was of 3 lobes. But I would continue like that. They look like little trees. But in the, you know the way, if you're familiar with Zentangle, they do this kind of thing with poke root or poke leaf and other things. It's done in medieval manuscripts as well, where you put like a letter C that has a curved top around that end, and it almost makes it look like these are disappearing inside some fluff. And the other thing I'm going to do is shall I add some little lines on this? Let's see what it looks like. The worst thing is that I don't like it, and I've tried it, and I won't ever use that again. Trying to make it look perhaps a little bit more fluffy or dimensional. Not sure that it does work. I prefer it with the dots at the end. Broken lines where I can. I think that just looks so much happier and better. There we go. So a different variation. And on this one, I think I'll leave this area open. So that was fun. That was unexpected. But what I was going for was this arrangement here with these spokes. And we can make these spokes. Oh gosh, look at that, silly. These spokes as long as we like. I'm keeping them pretty much consistent here. And what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to do one C shape and then pop another one around it. So you get like a ring at the end of this. Because essentially I just want to see what it would look like. So how about we go for straight circles on the end. How would that work? That works. It's like a circle of berries now, isn't it? And notice how they tuck underneath. Something I thought and I saw that would be nice as well, perhaps is there we go, I finally got a 5-sided one. That was what I was aiming for here. And perhaps not close that C shape around the spoke. And let's go back to this original kind of one. I'm varying where I start drawing these little puffs from to see how or what way is more comfortable for me to draw them. I mean, that one's ended up quite a big one, but it's fine in the grand scheme of things. No, nature, nothing is perfect, is it? What I thought is, you know, if you've watched me often enough and listened to me, I like to pop. The border around them like that. I'm just going back there and tidying that up. And so that would separate them, I suppose, a bit more. But it's useful if we've got a line of them. So if I do I'm going to do some that are just 4 of each in shape. 4 of each in shape. I don't know what I was trying to say there. 4 of these spokes. I'll leave. I don't know if I like them open now. I've done them with these on. It does feel that it makes it. It feels like it's a bit more fluffy just by doing that. So let me just do a couple more. Well, I'm not going to get another one in there, but it will be fine to do this perhaps. Oops. I'm just oaring around them. I'm going to pretend that there's another one under here, perhaps, just to give that sense of like almost a border or a ribbon of these trailing through a design. Then this gives you that break between this part. It almost looks like I'm looking in a hole to my mind here, as if we've torn paper around them. And then this gives the opportunity then around the edge to put different patterns in. So for now I'm just going to throw in some print on, some little spirals. Just to add something here. And of course I've got another edge here that I'm being respectful to, paying respect to it. I'm not going to fill it all in because it's a bit tedious, but it just gives that separation. I've said before how I like to do this because I don't like necessary patterns butting up one against the other. I find it can feel very cluttered and overwhelming and not so easy to follow. But just by doing something simple like putting a border like this around, just helps to separate one from the other. And this little darker edge as well helps to, well, I'm not quite sure which one's at the bottom now, whether it's this one or this one. It's quite fun. The other thing is about rounding, and so what I'm doing here is I'm adding a little bit of ink in the corner there, but I'm then going to extend that line a little bit just to give it a bit more of a curve, or that feeling of, again, it's that feeling that there's more to this than just a flat shape. That there's some structure and form perhaps to it. If I add little dots on the end as well, so I quite like that. Something, again, this is something that I do quite a lot in art. It just helps it to look quite interesting. So we've got those. I've got all this space here. So let's have a look at some others. Let's have a look at one where we've got perhaps 3 spokes coming off. And I think here what I'm going to do is, let me take that kind of shape, like so, and perhaps let's aura around it just to make it a little bit bigger and to add interest. Then I think I'm going to add some extra spokes in between these, but I'm going to make them longer, and again perhaps I'm just going to do that leaf shape again, and this time this will fill those gaps in. And if I aura one set, I'm going to aura the other one. You have to excuse my voice. It feels like it's a bit hoarse today. I think it's my allergies are playing up. So tree pollen season. It's damp outside. We had a beautifully sunny day yesterday, which means that there's going to be lots of tree pollen around. The dampness will hopefully help to damp it down, and maybe I will get some relief from it today. I take antihistamines daily all through the year. Asthma that is provoked by allergy stuff mostly, and but it seems to have got to my throat as well, which, you know, is one of those things. So that's quite an interesting variation. What about some others? Well, let me have a look and see how we can create different shaped spokes, perhaps. Because who says they have to be straight or equal? And then how else could we pop something on the top here? So if I start close in to each of them and create a small puff, and that's what I'm going to call them, they're little puffs, and then perhaps create a larger one around them. I started here quite a distance away, but I've decided that I think I quite like them if they start close and get bigger out. Again, it's got that feeling of things being dimensional. And I could even go to a third one, I think. Let's be exuberant. And let's get them to touch the ones beside them, even if we have to change the shape of the next outline, aura, whatever you want to call it. That's fun. I like that one. I'm trying to think how I can alter these in a different way, and I think what I'm doing is I'm just putting little curves on the outside of these as if they're curling over. They look almost like little seeds inside apples. I don't know why I said that, because they do and they don't, but it adds a little feeling of perhaps these are curling back up to here. We can actually enhance that feeling by changing how that line meets, how those lines meet each other, and that's quite fun. And with this, then there's more opportunity to add things in one of these channels. Obviously, the more channels you put here, the more borders or bands, I suppose, or layers, the more you've got space to do things like this. But I think that could be quite fun. Yeah, I'm doing my favourite perking. I'm perking around again. Just like that. So that adds some interest. Even just simple lines would. Don't have to get fancy with this. Sometimes I think I'm beginning to understand that getting too fancy can be a bit overwhelming, whereas just some simple shading can really help with the structure of things and how they feel. With this one, I'm playing with the distance between the lines to give a sense of where there might be a dip or a crease in it, and where it might be opening up a little bit. And you know, we can put other patterns in there. I'm going to go with a shattuck, just very quickly, It's a sketchbook. I'm using scuzzy old pens. A different way again. So that's quite fun. I left enough space there for that. Why am I putting those on that side? I don't know. I'm having moments. I'm really not with it today. I've got a bit of a headache. I'm really tired. I slept well, but I'm just so tired today. Okay, let's have a look at one thing. There is a variation that Maaike has on her deconstruction, and that's an interesting one. So let me have a look at how we can do this one. I think, oh gods, I'm making a pig's ear of this one already. Like so. Oh, I've made quite sharp corners there, but there's no reason why we can't curve them. In fact, perhaps adding some weight at the bottom of them might be a nice thing to do. By weight, I mean thickening the line and not adding a straight line across, but curving, almost like a, you know, the webs between frog toes. That's basically because I can't think of another good analogy for you. These ones I did curved. Why didn't I pick up on that? Oh, I know. It's because I'm tired and not with it. Excuse me. So let me do this one, and I'm just going to do... And these puffs you can make as organised or disorganised as you like. So I'm putting 5 little lobes on these puffs. And I'm going to do that with each of them. Probably. 1, 2, 3, that one's a 4. But then what I'm going to do here is carry on this line. I'm going to carry on this line this way. And then I'm going to put a cap on them. The paper, almost like it's going under the paper. Can't do it on that one. So let me do it on this one. So I'm going to carry this line on as if it's going through and coming out. And this is where this idea of it disappearing into the fluff, the puff, really helps. So it feels like it's going in, under, out. And then we can do the same here and have a band, almost like there's a slit in the paper, so it's going under the paper and coming out. And then we can, this is what I'm going to do. You don't have to, but I'm doing it because I can, and because I'm going to make a complete and total sow's ear of it, no doubt. A total sow's ear. Let me have a look. We just bring that down a bit, and then there's my first fluff. Second fluff. Can't see them off the page, off the screen. So what I've done is I've just done this sort of bridge with this trailing underneath here, got it going here and turning into another one of these. So that's quite fun. I wonder how many other patterns we can do that with. I'm saying that because I'll forget, you know I'll forget. But I quite like that as an idea. And there we go, we have a page full of Blomkoals. Just about anything you could put on the end, we could do. So let me have a look at some of these with ends. So how about something that's a bit more geometric? that kind of shape. Let's take that kind of leaf shape I've used here, but turn it more into a heart. We've done circles, done fluffs. Any others? We've got, these are basically teardrop shapes. Yeah, triangles. And I'm guessing we could have these branching too, so that on here we could pop seeds, or we do stars on the end. I don't see why not, do you? Awkward to draw, but actually that's really quite cute. All of these round one of these spokes, it would look almost like a dandelion head, wouldn't it? With all of those all around. That would be quite fun. Now I'm going to leave you have a play with that, because I've run out of space here and I'm not going to go on to another page today. Okie dokes, I'm just going to quickly reach for I've got some Inktense pencils and a water brush here. So I'm going to look for a colour that will not compliment, and say, oh, aren't you beautiful? Oh, ideally, I suppose I could get a palette out and use some Distress inks, but I'm going to use some Inktense inks, and we'll see. I can vary what colours I use, just ones that will work with this. So I've just got a water brush here, and I'm just going to pick some of this ink up from this. This is fuchsia, which means it's going to be absolutely crazy pink, but I quite like having that depth of colour right at the bottom and then fading out and trying to leave perhaps a little highlight somewhere. I'm not worried if I'm making a mess around the edges, because painterly perhaps, just leaving those highlights there, which will actually help, I think, with the idea that we've got texture going on, or volume perhaps, I don't know. First time I've done this, so it's easier to do now I've got that coloured background. Actually, if this was plain white paper, I think I'd be, oh, what am I doing here? Because I've already got this pink in the background, I'm actually happier to mess around with these kinds of things and let it be. And see what happens. I think that one isn't very well blended out, but it's fine. Actually, that works quite nicely. And even the different shades and tones, I mean, this one could perhaps do with a little bit more colour in it, here and there. But that can be done afterwards. So that's one. And of course, if I'm going to do that one, then perhaps this one needs to be done in a similar kind of way. Perhaps. Be a good idea if I actually cleaned my brush off in between each one. I'll move on to others to get rid of some of the colour as I go, so I can fade the colour out a bit easier, especially when I picked up a lot of Inktense on my brush. As long as you're working while the paper's still damp, it should blend in fairly easily, and if it doesn't, well, it doesn't. I'm talking to myself here. So those are quite fun. Let me use the lid of the pot to pop the damp pencils in. This is my favourite yellow colour. It's called Sienna Gold, so it's kind of an orangey colour, but I just think it would look fab in the middle. This colour goes so well with just about anything, actually. I use this a lot, so it's going to be a pencil. Or it's going to be something that I'm really glad you can get Inktense pencils on open stock. Although I've got plenty. I've got another set of Inktense in my stash, so I keep forgetting that I've bought things or that I still have them, because I'm a bit of an idiot at times. So, and here was me a few weeks ago thinking, oh, I'm just going to give away these, I'm going to get rid of all of this. So that's quite fun. I'll come back to add shadow in a little while. Pop that over on the lid so it can dry. What about some of these others? Okay, this one here, I'm going to play with, this is Thistle, which is a more purpley colour. Perhaps getting quite dark colour under the edge, but in that kind of painterly fashion, just blodging it out and just letting it have highlights and shadows where it will. But keeping underneath here, just that little bit darker. Some of this ink is lifting off the paper and mucking up my lines, but I'm fine with that. So that definitely lifts this off. I might come back and use a darker colour again round these, just to highlight them. Okay, let's have a look at this colour. Berries, I think, need to be purple. In my head, all berries should be purple. I don't know why. Perhaps just today they feel like they all need to be purple. Except this isn't really purple, it's a kind of rich pink. It's a different pink to fuchsia, even if it's not showing up very well as being different here. I'm paying attention to where I put the shadows on this because I want to get that feeling of roundness. So I'm trying to keep the colour darkest consistently around, so it's not using this as a pattern like it's always to the, you know, well, I suppose it is, because I'm trying to do always to the left and the bottom. But of course I also have to pay attention to where there are overlaps, so it's going to be interesting. It's lovely how just a hint of colour can bring things to life, isn't it? Just a tiny hint of it, nothing much. But just suddenly things just seem that much more interesting. You can do the same if you use like lines to add shadows and so on. I'm just going to add some here perhaps. Add a little bit more colour to this one, the bottom of this one, and all will be fine and well in the world, I think. Let me just do that. Put that there. I'll put that to one side because I do want, using the back of my hand as a place to clean off my brush. I think these I'm going to do in Sienna Gold because I do like a bit of Sienna Gold. The other thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to move some of that gold colour into the stem, because then I should be able to come in with a green. Makes a bit of a mucky colour on the pink, but it works-ish. This is a spring green, so I'm going to use the spring green on this one, and then hopefully quite quickly, I hope. I bet you I can't do this now. I hate it. This is why I dislike pencil things. But I've got this new, be quiet in a moment, I've got it. Yeah. I've got this new sort of caddy, I suppose, or bag that I can put everything into. But I don't like just having pencils rattling around, as in not organised. So I thought I'd put a selection of my most favourite or most used Inktense pencils in there. Actually, I prefer the fern on this. That fern is quite a nice colour against the pink, so I'm just going to add a bit more there. That'll be okay. And I'll do the same with these ones here. So I bought these sort of like boxes for pencils to go in there that would fit, and they fit really perfectly in the pockets. More luck than by judgment, I do have to say. But I think I've overcrowded the Inktense pot with too many colours, and it's a pain to find them. So I'm going to be thinking about what do I do with these next. Okay, so I've used that one, and I would like a different colour green. It's iron blue. See what I mean? Oh, that's the one I wanted. Actually, the ones I want are on the top, which is indicative, perhaps, of the ones I should winnow out and keep. So this is an iron green, which is quite a dark green, but it actually blends quite nicely with this fern to create a nice colour. The lovely thing about Inktense is they're translucent or transparent colours, so you see the colour underneath through them. So they, even when they've dried, you get that blend of colour, a bit like with alcohol markers, if you're familiar with those, where you glaze them. So you can blend the colours either by putting them down damp, or you can go back over and add another layer of either the same colour to intensify the colour, or a different colour to glaze it, to add a tone to it. And I'm trying to think what colour I'd like in the next layers. I think I'll go with, what's this one? Oh, this is Carmine Pink, which is rather lovely. So I think I'll do this one in the outer layers. I'll come back to these darker layers in a moment, because I'm not too worried if I go inside these with colour, because I'm not going to turn my book around today. This is just a sketchbook, so it's just for trying things out and seeing what happens. And colour is something that I do struggle with, as you know, if you've been watching me. Or I feel I struggle with it, put it that way. And this is a place where I can play without any pressure to be perfect. If it doesn't work, I've learned, don't use those colours together, in the hope that that message might stick. I'm not holding my breath on that one though. Definitely limited colour palettes are the way for me, I think. And I do mean limited to 5, maybe 6 colours that work together. Even if, you know, a couple of them perhaps may not be perfect, then, but you get a cohesive overall, you know, image produced, I suppose. Actually, that's a lovely pink against these colours, isn't it? I need to decide what I'm going to put in here, and I think I'm going to find a purplish colour. Hopefully I can find a purplish colour. What's that one? That's mauve. What's deep rose? No, we don't want deep rose. I've got mauve here. Let's go with mauve and put mauve here in these sections. More water to flow to the bottom of my brush. I can remember having this sketchbook, was it just a couple of weeks ago? I told that it's the Hannon Mueller DNS book, which is design, draft and sketch. So it's not the paper here isn't meant for watercolour or any, you know, any wet media really. But as I'm not strictly watercolouring in the sense of using lots of water and washes and all sorts of things, I'm just using quite a damp brush, or just barely damp, sometimes a bit damper than barely damp, but just using the minimum amount of water so I can use these water-based media to add colour. That actually looks okay. Not the choice. If I did this again, I wouldn't use that mauve there. I'd choose a different colour. But that's looking okay. That is. Okie dokes. I did see another colour I fancied using. Wasn't that one, but I'm going to use this one. This is iron blue. I've got a particular fondness for the iron blue and the iron green, believe it or not. I don't know why. Some of the colours in the Inktense set are really vibrant and vivid, and in the past they would have been my go-to colours, but I seem to have gravitated towards more soft and muted colours, or more muted colours, not necessarily soft and pastel, but ones that have got a fair amount of, they're less saturated, I suppose. I mean, this is a saturated colour, as in it's quite a dark colour, but it's not, there's grey in it or black in it to tone the colour down, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. It's not vivid. Strong, but not vivid. I'm not sure if that makes any sense at all, because I'm not an expert on colours. And if I've used that one, I'm going to go back to the iron green and use iron green for the outer part of this. So that, to me, is a lovely green. These ones inside are nice, particularly the fern, but this one, it's just something about it. The paper's damp, it's easy to blend some more colour in. When it's dried, it's not more difficult, it just means that you have to be conscious of that you don't leave lines if you don't want lines in the gradient. So it does mean brushing things out that little bit more. I suppose. I think I know what I'm saying. I don't know if it makes any sense at all. Yeah, I'm not making sense to myself today, but that's fine. So that looks really nice. So go from something that's quite blossomy and blooming to things that are more like leaf shapes. But I do want a little splash of colour in the middle there. Where is my thistle? I go to the thistle. Just add this little splash of colour, as if there's a seed in there. Just like that. And that looks rather fun. Just leave that to dry for a moment. They don't take long to dry, which is a good thing. Okay, I think I need to move on to shadows now. So I'm going to filter through here. No, I'm not going to apologise for my noisiness here. What colour is that? I've got charcoal grey here. So I'll just pop some of those back in. And I'm going to use charcoal grey to just add some shadows to these, hopefully. This may be a mistake, me doing it with wet media, but we shall see. So I'm going to add shadow under these. I'm not forgetting to do where they overlap as well. I'm trying not to use too much of the Inktense, but it's quite difficult because the paper's still damp and it's grabby. Technical term. It's grabbing the Inktense colour, but it's fine. That's a good place actually to put a dab of shadow, is just under here.
too. That helps to give that illusion that there's some volume going on here. And perhaps underneath the outsides. So I'm putting in a kind of a drop shadow here. It's not strictly one that's light based, I suppose, but trying to think where, if there's light to the top and the left, where the shadow would fall, and just letting it happen. This isn't my best shadowing. It may not look so bad once it's dried. It's my hope. Like so, it's just getting that idea down. This probably looks better on the screen, actually, in fairness. Okay, these are going to need shadows underneath them like this. Perhaps a little bit on that side. And we're definitely going to need shadow here, like so. And perhaps there, a little bit there. We can just scooch it down that little bit. And that just gives that impression that that's up a bit. It's not very good, and I'd be the first to admit this isn't my best idea for adding shadow. But it is what it is, and I'm going to go with it here at the moment. So I'm going to abandon that just for now, put my lid on, because I have over here, which you can't see but I can, some pencils. I don't want dark brown. Steel grey, if I can find a Payne's grey. Dead grey, bet you I can't. Pale lavender, that's not grey. Cloud blue. Dove greys, kind of looks like a grey green on the top of it. Steel blue will have to do. So I've got a colour soft pencil here. So rather than using a, what do you call it, charcoal pencil or something else, I'm going to use a coloured pencil for this, not charcoal, graphite, and gradually add just hints of shadow in places, and hopefully it's dark enough to show up on top here. So I can be quite subtle with my shadows, or either with this colour or with another I can actually intensify those shadows if I want to. This isn't doing it for me. So let's see how that works out for me. It is subtler, isn't it, in its way, but does it add shadow? I think it does. Shadows are quite subtle with it. It's getting these drop shadows in that's the interesting thing, but it can be done. Prefer that, I think, to this one, because the edges are, it's more controllable how much you put down for me, because I'm no expert with a brush. So let's just very quickly have a look at perhaps this one and how we can add perhaps some shadow to this. I'm going to use this grey to begin with, and let's see how that can work. You can fuss around as much as you like with these. I'm going to add some shadow along the inside of the left side and the bottom. But I'm also adding shadow as if this line extends somewhat underneath or inside and causes the lumpy bumpy bit to stick up. You can see that just about. Just with, I'm using tiny little circles here just to add some shadow. I find that softens the edge easier for me. And if I don't use too much pressure, then I can just keep adding. It's working in layers and gradually building up the colour to the shade, or to the shade we want. So this is the one, this is done with the grey pencil. Now then, where did I pop them? Because I had some colours out yesterday. I've got this one, which is a deep fuchsia. So let's have a look and see if I use a colour for this. If that works as well or as nicely. Because that grey does work. I've done a very good job there of that one being shadowed, but that subtle pink colour does add some shadow in an interesting kind of way. Bearing in mind where I want the highlights. Okay, let's try one more section. So there'll be quite a lot of shadow on that side because we're overlapping, but I still want a feeling of this area where this line goes in being raised. You can do that with the shadowing. Trying not to put quite so much on the outsides. That didn't make any sense at all. Trying not to, like here I've put an awful lot of shadow at the top here. This one I'm trying to leave a bit more shadow and concentrate where the shadows would be darkest, but we still need some around the edges because the edges are where this shape will fall away. So I'm having more success with coloured pencils than I was with the brush. And of course I can layer different colours on the top. I'll have a quick look and see if I've got I want a dark, either darker pink or a purple to go over the top of that. I think it's going to be a purple. I've got purple here. Bright purple. Actually, the bright purple I think would be better. I did pick a purple up, but the bright purple I think will be better here. So there's, I can just add perhaps hints of it where I want this colour to be that little bit darker. It does take a bit longer than, quite a bit longer than using, say, a graphite pencil and a paper stump or a tortillon to blend the colour out. But I think at the end of it, it ends up looking rather good. I mean, I'm chuffed with that. Perhaps I'm just being a bit too cautious with these colours. And that's okay, because it's better to be cautious until you have a feeling for how much of that shadow you want and how much of the lighter colour. And how much of this space that you do want to fill in and how much you want to leave as that highlight. And I'm not guessing, but I knew. Don't think I've got a white here, do you? Yes, I do. Got a white pencil. And that means then that if I want to bring some highlight in. And I can with that pencil. So I focused here on the fluffy bits, but these stems could do with some shadow and highlight as well. So if I take the grey and just run down the edges, and that means that I need to adjust where these lines are that suggest the stem bends. In this case it's bending because that's the way my lines have gone. But to do that as well and add the shadow towards the edge of these sections, the edges, really does intensify that feeling. So I'm quite happy with that. And in this in middle section, I'd be quite happy to use, well, any kind of dark colour really. Let me have a look and see what I had out. This is a Persian grey. Needs sharpening, but it'll do for now. So I can add just shadow over that. And with this I would be tempted to get a black out. Actually, a black out. Not to have a black out, to get a black, but dark brown. There's an indigo. Black. Really use black just to darken some areas. I think it would be too much to use on these stems and so on, though I perhaps could with just the tiniest touch, just add some just to darken some of these areas. Let's have a look here. Use black underneath colours. It's I think it's chiaroscuro. And the black can intensify the colours, I think, but it adds that shadow and shading, and I have that ability to go over the top with the colour, but the black underneath remains and shows through as that shadow. I don't do this a lot, as you can tell. It takes a lot of time, and if I can use a medium that gets colouring quickly, I will, because I like drawing more than I like colouring. But I'm beginning to warm to colouring and how important it is. So I'll just adjust my camera just a little bit so you can see the whole page. So I don't know what you think of this, whether you like what I've done or not, whether you found the waffling about colours and so on that I could use, with this of interest or not. Because it is waffle today, I admit it. But I've actually found this a lovely pattern, and though my head isn't on straight yet today, and it may not be at all today by the feeling on it, I actually have enjoyed doing this and how it's worked out. Part of me wants to give this a wash of Distress glaze, because the Distress MicroGlaze, it's like a wax, and you put it on and it adds a slight sheen to the paper and it lifts colours. Heck, let's go and do it. Let me just go and get, I know where the MicroGlaze is. I just need that. Got that. Oh, and I've got a little bit of cloth with it as well. Look at that, a bit of cloth. So let's have a look and see how this works, because part of me, it just looks a bit dusty here. But perhaps my problem is that this can lift my I've got the tiniest amount here on this piece of cloth, and I'm just adding it on the top. And I'm not sure whether there's any difference, to be honest. Let's have a look and see if I can just do part of this one, this shape, and see how that, just a bit, perhaps a little bit more towards the middle. Oh gosh, I've picked up a lot of microglaze here. It adds a lovely sheet, it has a lovely feel to it. But I think that does make a bit of a difference. I think it does help with the colours coming out just that little bit. Takes that dustiness away. Again, let me try with just some of these here and see if that helps. I think it does. It might be subtle. I don't know whether you'll notice it, but I really do think it does make a little bit of a difference. Try just one, just try up here on this one, because I have finished with this one now. It does give a little bit of a difference. Maybe subtle, but I think, because they were looking like, I describe it sort of dusty and yeah, just dusty, and the microglaze seems to take that dustiness up. Once you've microglazed, it's waterproof paper, and this is it. You can actually buy microglaze that isn't distressed. This is really quite expensive for what it is, but microglaze is available for in car polishes and things. I think that's where this one comes from, although this one is acid free. It's non-toxic, so you can eat it, I suppose. No, don't do that. Just don't apply sparingly over artwork by rubbing the glaze on the surface of your fingers. Buff off with excess with dry paper towel for a smudge resistant waterproof finish. There we go. I use it with a bit of cloth because icky fingers. So I hope, well, I don't know if that's of any use. Brain dead. And I'm going to go, and I'm going to say thank you for joining me. I'm putting up with my little experiments today, and I hope this is giving you some things to think about, something to try. Well, look at this one. By accident, it's like I've got one growing out of the other. Now that's a possibility as well, isn't it, by using part Blomkoals. There we are. I just noticed that. But just play with it and see what happens, and have fun. That's what sketchbooks are for. To try things out, to see if they work, see if things help, and as a record of what you've done more than anything else, and a resource to look back on. So when perhaps you lack inspiration, you can just flick through it and go, oh, that's a pattern I like. I'd forgotten about that one. Let's use that and see where it leads me. Because that's all I do. That's all my notebooks are. They're not very organised. They can be vaguely organised, but they're not. It's just a place for recording things I see or I like or I want to work with in one place so that it's easy for me to look them up. So until I see you again, take care for now, have fun, and more importantly, be creative. Bye-bye for now. Bye.